Everyone, it's Don. I'm going to be showing you how I use OBS to record tutorial videos and other things like our weekly demos, and the setup that I use that I think we should be using internally across all of our tutorials. We'll give you the fancy intro card, the lower third of your name, and the desktop window that looks good with your setting and yourself in the corner in a circle, as well as an outro for when the video's over. I'll start off by going over what OBS is. It's a piece of software called Open Broadcast Studio. You can download it for free at obsproject.com. Download the appropriate version for your OS and install it. And when you do, you'll get something that looks like this. It's just blank, empty. It looks a little intimidating at first, but we'll walk through the basic things that you need to know. We're going to focus on getting set up with 4 things: a title card scene, an intro scene, which you just saw with yourself as a full screen video and your name appearing on the screen, a desktop scene that looks like this, where you have a full desktop and yourself in the corner, and an outro scene. These 4 scenes are all you need to really start doing more pro looking videos, as well as I'll also go over how you can adjust your mic settings to be more professional. So let's start off by creating the settings that we need for recording. So if you go up to File Settings in Mac, it'll be up in the File menu. You go to Settings. The first thing you'll want to do is adjust the output. We're going to be recording to whatever file path you put in the recording path, and we're going to choose from this menu high quality, medium file size. That gives you a good mix of good enough quality, but not gigantic files. And then for recording format, we'll use MP4, which is a good generic format. If you have the option to do hardware encoding, then do so. It'll just use your video card if possible. For audio, we'll switch to make sure that the sample rate is the highest audio quality that we can and that it's recording in stereo. For the mic input, it'll be picked up as your default if available. For video, we're going to want to enter 1920 by 1080. If that's available in the dropdown, you can pick it. Otherwise, you can type that in. And same for, so that will be the size of the canvas, which is this black area that we see in the window behind us, as well as the output, which will be the size that the video gets saved at. We'll also record that at 1920 by 1080. Those are the settings that you need to get started. So next up, we're going to talk about scenes. Those are the basic building blocks of OBS that allow you to transition from one scene to the other. OBS will, when you hit start recording, will start recording everything that it sees on this canvas. And whatever it sees at that time is what it will be output to the video. That makes it easy so you can put in those intro cards or your video or your desktop and switch between them without having to do any post editing. So we're going to start off by creating this blank scene, and we're going to name it blank. And then we're going to add ourselves a color source to it. We're going to call it Deephaven blue and hit OK. And then we're going to do select color. And in that, we're going to put in Deephaven blue 040427. That just gives us a blank blue screen that we can use for building off other things. Next, we'll create another scene. And on this scene, we're going to call it title card. And we'll add a source to it. So we can switch between our scenes. We see this main scene and this title card. This title card has nothing on it. We'll add it's called a browser source. And what that does is just kind of fires up an internal browser and records whatever's set within it. You could have it point to any URL or a local file. And if we use a local file, I've set up one that allows us to have a consistent title card. So I'm going to give this, so I selected add new source, browser. I'm going to create a new one and I'm going to name it title card browser. Click OK. And then for the URL, I'm going to go to our shared drive in the DevRel learning OBS folder. There's a file called OBS HTML. If I just open that file in a browser, to get the G path to it, what I want is actually the file path to it. So if I drag it to the browser and click on it, I see the file dot whatever. It'll be a little bit different on Mac, but if you copy this path of just when you open it and get it up in Chrome or Safari, if you copy that file path, it should be what you need. So we're going to put that file path in. And then for the size, we're going to put 1920. Oops. 1920. And for the height, we're going to put 1080. This is referred to as 1080p, and that was the same as we set our browser in. 1080. And we'll make it refresh when the scene becomes active. So what it'll do is it'll display whatever's at that URL, that file path, and refresh it when the scene becomes active. And you should get something that looks like this. We can interact with it and label it whatever we want for our demo. So let's say we're giving a demo on OBS. That's where we can put it in. We can put it on or Deephaven. And then we can add a subtitle, earning session, and I'll have today's date. This is just a page, an HTML page. You can look at the source of that ops.html file and make your own if you want, but just an HTML page that has this background, it has this text. I made it so it's editable, and I made it so you can put the date in, and it will automatically update to today's date if you have a date string in there. So I'll just close that, and that's what we have. And now, if I switch between these two cards, you'll see that when this scene loads, it comes up with that text and the title card. So the next thing we want to do is from that same folder, there's this logo intro folder file. We're going to drag that over here and drop it on. And that gives us this little logo animation that goes at the start. It actually has audio with it. You can't hear it right now. But if you want to hear what that sounds like, which I recommend you do, so it gives you a good cue of when the title card's ready to switch to the next scene, you can go to Advanced Audio Properties, pick Audio Monitoring, and put Monitor and Output. That will both allow you to, on the logo video file. If you put Monitor and Output, then you'll hear it in the monitor source, and if you have a set of headphones on, then it'll be playing in the headphones. If you're not recording with headphones on, then you'll probably want monitor to be off so that you don't end up having that audio coming out of your phone speakers. I'm going to leave it on because I am wearing headphones. Now, when I switch to this card, we see that it loads in the scene. And we have this audio playing. Next up, we're going to want an intro card to introduce ourselves with. Sorry, I should go back and talk about the settings that we want for this video. We actually want it to restart when the source becomes active. And we actually want it to uncheck show nothing when the playback ends. That way, the logo stays on screen when that video file is done. You can, again, right-click on it and go to Properties, or you can select it and click Settings and unclick Show Nothing when playback ends. Next up, we're going to create another card. And for this card, what we want to do is create one called My Intro. And on this card, we're going to add our first video source. So we'll add a video capture device, which is your webcam. If we don't have any existing ones, we'll be creating one for the first time. So we'll create one called My Video Capture Device. That's fine. Click OK. And we can see that it picked up my webcam. If you have multiple sources, you can add that there. This is my webcam. Now, I actually know that this is a 1080p webcam, so I'm going to switch it because it's not picking up the resolution from default to custom. And I'm going to pick 1080p 1920 by 1080 from there. For FPS, I'll let it to match the output, which we had as 60 frames per second. Click OK. There I am on a title card. What I'm going to do is next add another browser source. And on this one, I'm going to create what's called a lower third. Lower third is like the name used to describe the little text that comes up next to someone's face when you see it on like a TV broadcast. So we're going to create one called lower third. And in the same way that we just had the file paste, what do we call it? The URL to the OBS file from the drive. We're going to open that again. And this time we're going to add a question mark at the end. And we're going to type title equals, and then I'm going to put my name, and a space in there is fine. And then we're going to put an ampersand and do subtitle, and we'll put a job title of whatever you think is appropriate for you, if it's DevRel or whatever, and then we'll hit enter, and we should see it come up like that. So we'll copy that, and we'll put it in for the URL. Again, we'll enter 1920 by 1080. And again, we'll click refresh when it becomes active. What will happen there is when we switch from one scene to this scene, it'll come up and display that as a title. Next up, we'll want to add another scene, and we're going to call this one My Desktop. And for this desktop, we're going to set up the video where it has the screen recording and yourself in the corner. So to do that, we need to go to sources, click add, click display capture. And you could also do window capture or display capture. Display capture, if you create a new one, display capture, you can add it. So if you add multiple monitors, you can have separate sources for each one. We'll create one that's display capture, and we'll pick this monitor, and we can see that it's capturing the full thing. Click OK, and see that it's actually bigger than the size of our window, because my monitor's larger than 1080p. If you're on a laptop, it might be smaller. So I'm just going to drag it until it fills the screen. If you're using a laptop, you might also have a different resolution, so you might end up with bars on either side. That's okay. You can just add a blank color source like you did on the first page, so that the bars on either side are Deephaven blue. So I've scaled this down to be the size of the canvas. Next up, we're going to want to add ourselves in the video corner. I apologize for like the Inception style video that you're getting, but that's what happens when you record video with yourself, the screen that you're using. So next up, we're going to add a group, and we're going to call this group image mask. You can call it anything, but this will make it clear what it is. And then we're going to add a video capture device, and we can add the existing one that we already have. No need to create a new one. This is already the feed of your video cam. So we'll add that, and we'll drag it into the image mask. Next up, we're going to right-click the image mask and click filters. Or you can hit settings and hit filters. Same thing. So we'll go to filters. Click add, and we're going to go image mask blend. And what this is going to do is allow us to use an image. In this case, I have an image that's just a circle on a screen, on a 1920 by 1080p size image with a circle. I'm going to browse for that. I'm going to select it, and it's going to be used as a mask for my video feed. So there it is. Next, we're going to just drag it from select that layer, drag it from the corner I'm not holding shift or anything. It will just automatically do it to aspect ratio to whatever size you feel is appropriate, and put it in the corner. And then you'll be off in the corner of that video. So that's 3 of the scenes created. The last one that we're gonna add 2 more. We're gonna add one that's titled just My Video. And we can add a video capture device, add existing, and pick your full one. And again, it's just full screen video, so that when you're ready to close out a video, you can give an outro of, hey, thanks for watching. I recommend you subscribe to our YouTube channel if you want to see more content like this, etc., etc. And then on the final card scene, we'll add one called outro, and that will be our outro video. If you go back to the shared drive, there's a file called logo outro. If we drag that in, I can actually show you another way of doing it. You can click add, media source, create new media source, logo outro.mov is what it's going to be. You can make it any file name, but that's what we'll call it. And then you can browse and pick the file. And on this one, show nothing when playback end is fine. And we want it to restart when it begins. We're gonna let it play in here, and we're just gonna hit pause while it's playing. We're gonna right click. We're gonna go to transform. We're gonna say center vertically. Then we're gonna right click again, go to transform, go center horizontally. So now it's centered in the center of your screen. And then we're going to do the same thing, and we're going to go to add color source, add existing. We're going to pick that Deephaven blue one, and we're going to put it below the video that we just, we're just going to move it down so it's below the video. So now we have all these cards set up. We've got a blank one at the start, and you can see when I went in between those, it was a fade transition. You can actually change the transitions that will happen as you go between the different scenes. I just like to use just a simple fade, and sometimes I'll change it from 300 milliseconds to 750 milliseconds, so it's just a faster transition. I can switch between my video, and then when I'm done, it'll play this outro for you. So the next thing we want to do is make sure our audio is set up. I go to settings, audio, and pick the mic for my mic source. I'm going to pick my high quality USB microphone that I'm using. Click OK, and we can see that it gives a volume level of how you're talking. This is your audio mixer that allows you to control audio levels of any media that's playing or any mic sources that you have. I hadn't added one yet, so there wasn't a mic. You can see when I talk very loud, it maxes out like that. You're not hearing that because the recording that I'm using has audio settings on it. So let's set up the audio settings that I like to use. You can see that this audio mixer, it spans across all of the different sources. When we added that mic is always there. So if we go to audio settings and click filters, it's going to bring up the audio filters dialog, and we're going to start adding audio filters that will improve the sound quality. So the first one we're going to add is a noise suppression. This noise suppression will add the ability to kind of block out keyboard sounds, mouse clicks, things like that. So start off with noise suppression. Then we'll add what's called a noise gate. And what that'll do is when you stop talking, it'll make the dead air silence be completely blank. It's also good for just blocking out general breathing noises so you can't hear if you're just like, you know? So next up, we'll add a compressor. The default settings for all of these are pretty much what you want to use. You don't really need to mess with it. It's basically fine as is. So the compressor, what it does is kind of just create a more full sounding mic. Next we'll add an expander. And the order does matter here. So we want noise suppression first, then noise gate, then a compressor, then an expander. And then I have something called a Vst plugin. This is an optional thing. It's a third-party plugin you would have to install. It doesn't come by default with OBS. But it allows you to just, if you want to go the extra mile and set up some EQ settings. Generally, you want something that kind of looks like this. You see where you have peaks on the low side. You want to bump those up to a little higher, maybe plus 5 or 10. Be fine. And same with on the high side. Anything around, starting around 5K and scoping up. And anything starting around minus, I don't know, what is that, 200 and scoping up. It's fine. Again, that's an optional one. You can Google VST plugin if you want to get access to an equalizer. Next up, we will add gain. And what gain will do is you want to be generally talking at somewhere around where this is peaking just over minus 10 to minus 3. That's kind of the sweet spot. So you just want to be at the bottom of that red zone all the time when talking. And if you're not getting there, if you're just not close enough to the mic when you're talking, or your natural speaking voice isn't loud enough, you can add just a little bit of gain here. So for me, I need to about +3, and that'll get me into this just edge of the bottom red zone all the time. You can see, though, I'm still getting peaks when I talk really loud, that it goes up to the top. So the last thing we want to do is add a limiter. And we're going to change this from -6 to -3. That's the max level, that if you start to get to that volume, it'll start limiting it so it never goes too out on your listeners' ears. And that's setting up your mic. So now that I have all of these set up, what I want to do is show you how I use this. We can just get rid of that. We're going to go to settings, and we're going to go to hotkeys, and we're going to assign a hotkey to start recording. And I like to use Control-Shift-F11. You can use whatever you want. And another hotkey to stop recording, Control-Shift-F12. Those are the ones that I like to use. And then you can also set hotkeys for your scenes. So what I do is actually start on the blank scene, which is what will be started up by default. And then when I hit record, I have it switch to the first recording scene. So if I assign sorry, I probably just changed the video on you. When I click that shortcut, I have 2 instances of OBS, so when I hit record here on this one, that shortcut, it triggered it on my other one. So when I hit record with start recording, it'll automatically trigger that first title card scene at the same time. So I'll go, I'll have my screen set up if I'm recording a demo of whatever feature I want to be demoing, or a tutorial on how to use whatever feature I want to show off. I'll just bring it up in my browser. I'll put it at full screen. F11 in the browser will do that. And it'll give you a nice full view of the screen. And what I like to do is make sure you have Slack and email and any other thing that can create a notification turned off before you start recording. And then I'll also like to put in 2 levels of zoom in the browser, so that's at 125%. That just makes it a little bit easier if you're showing code or text on screen. If you're trying to go for density of information, the regular zoom is fine. But if you want to make it a little easier to see code and things like that, being zoomed in helps. So I could be in that, and then I can hit Control-Shift-11, which will start recording. You can also use the controls in OBS to do that, and that'll switch to the title card. And because I have monitor set to on, I'll hear this intro music that we're seeing on this levels. And then when the intro music is done, I can assign shortcuts to these other scenes as well. To switch between them, I actually have 2 monitors, so I can just click them. And on my second monitor, when I click onto that scene, it will display this scene. If I didn't have a second monitor, I'd probably assign these as Control-Shift-F1, F2, F3, F4, and just remember what scene I'm on and what scene I want to switch to. Excuse me. So if I wanted to go from my title card to my intro, I would just click on this scene when recording, or use my keyboard shortcut to do so. And then when I want to switch to my desktop, I can click on this scene. And then when I want to switch to my full screen video, I can click on the video scene. And then when I'm done, I can click on the outro scene. And then when the outro finishes, you hit stop recording. So again, I'll just show what that looks like. I'll hit start recording. I'll switch to the title card. I'll switch to the intro and give my intro to the purpose of the video. Hey guys, welcome, etc., etc. I'll switch over to the desktop, do my tutorial, give my outro, and then switch to the actual video outro. And then when that's done, I'll hit stop recording. And then you can see it recording is saved to that file path. And if you go to that file path, your video will be there for you. Actually, a couple more things I wanted to mention. On the title card, I don't know if I mentioned it, in the properties, you want to make sure that both of these check marks, shut down source when not visible and refresh browser when scene becomes active, are checked. On the desktop, it's a good idea to make sure you're facing into the scene, like I am here, rather than my large one where I'm currently facing out of the scene. In this small one, I'm facing into the scene. The way I can do that is if I just drag it all the way so it flips, I can make it so I'm looking out, or I can make it like I'm looking in. If you make it look like you're looking in, it just looks better. It makes it look like you're looking at the content rather than out of the scene to something off screen. And then the third thing I wanted to make mention too, it's kind of a bonus tip. If you go into Tools, Scripts, you can add a script. I've included one called Media Switcher. And if you pick that from the menu, then you can use this bonus script that if you pick logo intro, you can make it go to whatever scene you want when the logo intro finishes. So if I make that be my intro, then when I go to the title card, it has this video logo intro, and when this logo intro finishes, I'm not going to touch anything. It's automatically going to switch scenes to my intro scene for me. I didn't have to do anything. So that's just an easy way to switch scenes without having to do anything. All right, that's it. Those are all my tips. If you have any questions, feel free to message me. Thanks, guys.